I'm ready for
Yeah, let's make something happen on the Thursday.
that. Like that.
Yeah. Good.
Exactly.
We have the call the roll, please.
Chair Wonderman,
Here.
Director Alba,
Here.
Director Doble.
Here.
Director Duke.
Here.
We have a forum.
Very good. We expect Director, Vice Chair Moyer to be along. Would you all rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome to WETA's Board of Directors meeting. This monthly meeting is being conducted in person and by video conference, and it's being recorded. To reduce background noise, all video conference participants will be joining the meeting in listen-only mode and muted during the discussion. WETA welcomes comments from the public. A public comment period will be set aside after each discussion period. You see? Careful what you say. I don't have a long report today. I've been riding the ferry steadily and enjoying watching, the crowds grow and noticing the difference, and it's been great. So it's the same thing I said last month. I'll just repeat myself. With that, let me go on to a director, to my fellow directors, Director Alba.
No updates today.
Director Delbono.
Ditto, no update.
Director Du.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that Vallejo had the Pieces de Nayon event that WETA was a sponsor of. There was about, I am told, about 10,000 people there. So really well attended and very popular event.
Terrific, thank you. Let me turn to the staff report, Executive Director Murphy.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman. First, we may have some attention from some journalists who are competing for the Hearst Journalism Award. It's something that happens every year. I'm just learning about it now, but they've selected ferry service in the Bay Area, and some of the exciting things that we're doing is their topic. So there are several competitors all writing about that topic and competing for their finalists. Come a long way competing for the Hearst Journalism Award. They're from all over the country. I think we may have some here in the audience, and others paying close attention this week. So excited to see what they write about and how they propose to cover the topic of ferry service in the Bay Area, our transition to zero emissions and our ridership return, all sorts of good things that they're paying attention to. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I want to introduce Kevin Connolly to talk a little bit about the Oakland Alameda Estuary Ferry service that we've been working towards. This is the latest in a series of efforts to partner with the private water transit operators in the Bay Area and seek some opportunities to collaborate with them. There's an important update on this particular opportunity Kevin's going to share with us.
Thank you, James. Kevin Connolly, Manager of Planning and Development. I have good news and bad news to share. I mean, on the good news side, the partnership that we're talking about, which is on both sides of the estuary, it's an interesting partnership between the cities of Oakland, as well as nonprofits such as the Business Improvement District in Jack London Square, and employers. And they secured a grant to operate ferry service across the estuary. And that grant would kick in terms of the funding for next spring. But enthusiasm was so high amongst the partnership that they wanted to trial run some service this summer. And a lot of pieces need to fall into place to make that work. And the good news is almost every piece fell into place. We had insurance, we had landing agreements, we worked out a service plan, we worked out a budget. Unfortunately, one key piece did not fall into place, so we're not doing it this summer. And our intention is to turn to the spring. And that one piece was we were unable to have our contract operator, in this case it was Prop SF, did not have a ADA accessible vessel. And none of the partnership felt comfortable, and actually WETA was not willing to operate service that wasn't ADA accessible. And so we're turning our attention to the spring, and we are planning on continuing to work with Prop SF. But and that's the last piece that needs to fall into place. They need to secure an ADA accessible vessel between now and March or so. And everything, the good news is, again, is that everything else will be ready to operate the service.
I would just comment, I enjoyed reading this section, except for we don't have the boat part. But, that's exactly the kind of service, local, we don't always need to cross the bay in order to be successful at making water transit part of people's daily life and enabling commerce, local commerce and recreation and activities. And so it's really great to see that. And that estuary, Alameda and Oakland, they're either really far apart or really close together, depending upon whether you have that service. So I hope we're able to put it in place in the spring and make sure we do it right.
And I would just thank Kevin for work on this. This is something that's going to require some stick-to-itiveness. This is not easy to find a private operator, find an opportunity to partner with them on this, and then also make sure that the right equipment is available for us to that'll meet our needs, meet the services needs. But we're playing the long game. We will make it happen. Our effort to partner with a private entity is the sea change. As you remember, that took a long time to come together, and we're only just now seeing the results of that. So we will stick with this and hopefully have more to report on the progress soon.
Thank you.
Next item that I wanted to cover, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren Gallardi to introduce our guest to talk about the Working Waterfront Coalition. Workforce has been a popular topic at WETA board meetings. It's certainly one of our biggest challenges when it comes to identifying DBE contractors that can work on WETA projects. The shortage of maritime workers in the region and really all over the country is something that is starting to become more glaring of an issue. And we have some folks who are working on these issues directly to share some of what they're doing here today. I'll ask Lauren to introduce them. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thanks, Seamus. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Speaking of the long game, this is definitely the long game. We're excited to have Sal Vaca and Bobby Winston here today to introduce and provide an overview of the Working Waterfront Coalition. They're going to go ahead and provide a more extensive overview, but in short, this coalition seeks to build a new generation to support the maritime industry in the region. They've done an incredible job of knitting together a universe of maritime stakeholders in the Bay Area into this coalition. And for WETA, it really offers a lot of advantages that are directly tied to our legislative mandates of expanding ferry service in the San Francisco Bay and the region and providing emergency ferry service. So first and foremost, as we seek to expand ferry service, we need to ensure that there's a pipeline of trained and qualified workers to support the system. And not just to support our expansion, but really to also to maintain our existing levels of service. For example, Blue and Gold Fleet is expecting about 15 to 20% of their deckhands to retire in the next 5 to 7 years. So this is an issue that we need to address now to make sure that we can backfill those positions and expand on the Bay. Secondly, it's critical to our emergency response efforts to ensure that there's access to ship repair, shipbuilding, and marine construction services in the region to support our efforts in the event of an emergency here in the Bay Area. And then finally, we've talked a lot about the challenges of the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, the DBE program, and how there's barriers to getting the experience and certification that's needed to work in this industry. And this workforce development effort can really help provide an avenue to educate existing and future DBEs on what is required to participate on these contracts, while simultaneously actually getting the experience and the certifications to be able to compete on these maritime contracts in the industry. So I'm really excited to think about participating in this program and all the benefits that it can bring to our agency. It's a positive thing. It's an effort that's going to meld the maritime community together, and it's going to create a lot of opportunities and will be viewed positively by our stakeholders and our state and federal representatives. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Bobby, who's going to provide a little bit of overview, and he'll hand it over to Sal. Bobby, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, esteemed members of the WETA board, Executive Director, kudos for taking the time today to consider workforce development. This is a big problem for the working development. We're short some 600 workers. That number is just to keep going the ferries, tugs, and barges. We already have plans for expanded ferry service, and even more so, wind energy will greatly increase that number. This problem has been long in the making and won't be solved overnight. Finding workers is difficult across the economy these days, but it's even tougher for us on the working waterfront. Our jobs have traditionally been handed down by family members, word of mouth. Frankly, even insiders don't understand the opaque hiring process. That doesn't cut it in today's job market or with tomorrow's workforce. And it certainly makes it harder to achieve diversity goals. It's frustrating because these are honorable, well-paid jobs with excellent benefits and career pathways. Today, you're going to hear about the work of the Working Waterfront Coalition to try and come up with some solutions. It's an employer-led effort to recruit and train the next generation of workers and up-train our existing cohort of workers. We've been laying the groundwork for this regional effort for almost a year, and a lot has already been accomplished. We've landed about $1 million in state grants. We expect more. We've adopted some high school welding programs. We've liaised with labor, community, and civic stakeholders, and we've narrowed the search for a permanent home. And we're in this for the long term. We'll address the current need, but we'll also plan for the future by helping rebuild vocational education, internships, and industry partnerships in area high schools. It's a lot, and it really feels overwhelming. But we are indeed fortunate to have as the architect of this, the man you're going to hear from now, Sal Vaca. Sal was the longtime head of workforce development for the city of Richmond. He's simply acclaimed in this work, and he's going to present our plan to you now.
Good afternoon, everyone. And certainly a pleasure to be here this afternoon to share with you a lot of the exciting work that Bobby has touched on. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to go a little bit deeper in a lot of the topics that Bobby touched on, and you'll see really the exciting work, the employer-led initiative that we've embarked on over a year ago and have made, I believe you'll agree, incredible progress towards implementing something that's very significant and impactful here in the Bay Area. But first of all, these are some of the drivers behind these discussions, behind the work. Really the opportunities, things that we all are aware of, and the Bay Area is home to some of the largest ship repair facilities in the West Coast. Very telling. We have a very robust and expanding ferry service. Like other industries, there's a shortage of trained workers. However, unlike other industries, this particular industry doesn't have the partnership, the training tracks that others do, like the health sector and like IT. So there's certainly a huge void, and really the lack of those partnerships to implement these programs. Plus, we also have the opportunity to leverage the federal, the state, the local dollars around infrastructure and the reduction of low gas emissions and the opportunities to align workforce development with these projects. And lastly, something that's very timely, something that's very exciting in a lot of communities and frankly, very sexy. And how do we support and implement in California's very aggressive vision for offshore wind generation? A report by the National Renewable Energy Lab projected some numbers that to implement that vision. We're going to need a workforce of 12 to 50,000 on an annual basis to support that. Very detailed as to what these projects will look like, but upwards of 100 new ships, specialized vessels will be needed to design, to build, to support those wind farms. All those ships are going to need ongoing maintenance, ongoing repair. The Bay Area is prime to participate in this effort. Let me tell you more about the Working Waterfront Coalition. It's comprised of industry employers, and as Bobby mentioned, this is an industry-led effort. Employers stepped up and requested for us to engage in these discussions and help them address their critical need. Included in that partnership were also ferry services and ferry operators. We've also had ongoing extensive discussions with labor, IBU, MMPs, and also the Machinists Union. Their voice is critically important. And also a partnership with the Machinist Institute in Seattle. They are recognized as the premier maritime training program in the West Coast. That's where we want to be. That's who we want to emulate. And I'll share more about the work that they're doing. We're also partnering with workforce development boards. They're part of a federal construct for workforce development and ensuring that employers and communities are trained and prepared, and they have some resources to make that happen. We're also actively working with a large number of community-based organizations. These are individuals that have their fingers on the pulse of communities, and particularly communities that have been underserved up to this point. Part of our model is we want to ensure that they are connected, they are engaged, and they also participate in the training and the work that we're doing. Those organizations include the West Oakland Job Resource Center, Unity Council in Oakland, and also Lao Family. That's just a short list of the community-based organizations that are part of this partnership. And we also have a special focus on the reentry population, ensuring that there are pathways for those populations to gain the skills, gain the training, and be gainfully employed. And we're working very closely with the Alameda Reentry Program. And then lastly, we're also working with the CSU Maritime Academy, an exciting program, exciting institution in our community. And they're really focused on the higher level preparation, academics aspect of it. What you'll hear in our models, we're really focused on the day-to-day hands-on entry level for populations that are not on the track to go to university, but really could benefit from a short-term training program and be able to connect with industry employers. And for those of you that know Bobby Winston, and once he gets a good idea and he's locked in into those ideas, he's going to follow through. He's going to follow up, and that one idea is going to multiply many fold over. We started discussion on developing a short-term training program. Now, as part of the Working Waterfront Coalition, we have really a broad strategy around the marine trades in the maritime sector, and there's 5 key components to that strategy. Number one, at the request of industry, is to develop a short-term training program in the trades and marine trades. And as Bobby mentioned, we have, through partnerships with Contra Costa Workforce Development Board and the West Oakland Job Resource Center, we have landed funding to implement that particular program, and we're in active discussions with industry about designing that program. We're also working with the water transportation component and working with IBU to develop an entryway into their apprenticeship program. And what this will look like will be something similar to a pre-apprenticeship program before they connect with IBU that will include orientations, outreach, ride-alongs, so they could actually, the participants will actually see the work that's being done to make sure that this is a good choice, a good connection for them. And also career technical education at the high school level, identify those welding programs, those machining programs. And this is really the feeder system into the marine trades program. There's a few things that really stood out through our visits at local high schools. Number one, there's a lack of connection with the classroom and the instructor and with industry. There's a huge gap there. In many instances, the youth are in that classroom because their counselor assigned that classroom to them. It wasn't their choice. Our goal is to work with those instructors, with those employers, to make that experience real, that they can see that there's a connection, their time in the classroom to industry, to a job, and to a career. And we're going to do that by connecting industry experts to come into the classrooms and provide overviews and orientation to the youth so they can get a better picture, a clear picture of what it's all about. We're also going to coordinate worksite visits from the classrooms to the job sites. And lastly, all these classrooms are suffering from a shortage of materials and equipment. We're going to connect them with employers that are willing to support these high school programs to really enhance and enrich that experience. We've also initiated discussions around developing or having the Working Waterfront Coalition be the single point of contact between the community programs, community resources, and industry to be able to make that connection. Instead of having 10 organizations talking to one employer with a different message, how do we align and how do we coordinate that message in ways that it's more effective, more impactful? And lastly, for now, Bobby, lastly, by strategies. Developing a fee-for-service component that we will educate, train, and prepare employers on the myriad of hiring tax credits and incentives that are available out there. Not all employers are aware of these incentives. Very few of them are taking advantage of them. Through this fee-for-service model, is we're going to set up a component that we will educate the employers, and we will take on the role of actually doing the paperwork on their behalf for a fee. To make that happen for them, to make sure that they're taking advantage of that and connect that same training component with outreaching to DBEs that could be participating with WETA and other larger projects in the area, and also organizations that are not DBE certified, but lack really the wherewithal to get that certification and be able to connect with procurement opportunities. That service component will be able to assist in that area. Let me tell you about the first grant that we landed, and this was with Contra Costa County Workforce Development Board as the lead applicant, and in partnership with the West Oakland Job Resource Center. We applied to California Workforce Development Board under the Workforce Accelerator Project. We're funded $500,000 to initially launch the Marine Trades Training Program. And we sold our proposal to the state by saying we're going to commit to 7 key things that will make an impact in establishing the industry and benefiting community residents. Number one is to establish an industry board comprised of employers and workforce development folks. And I'll go more into detail who's on that, who will be sitting on that board. We committed to develop a short training program, 8 to 12 weeks, because of the population that we're really targeting. Those are individuals that need to have intensive training, hands-on training, to be able to connect them with the job. These are not populations that can commit to 6 months or 9 months of training and be able to provide them support services while they're engaged in the training program. We're also going to develop and implement a first source hiring program, probably the first ever in the marine trades. These are strategies and policies that have been very effective on the construction side. And I was fortunate enough to help the city of Richmond develop and implement their first source hiring policy. Now we're going to take all those years of experience and apply it to the maritime industry. And in discussions with industry employers, they're embracing the idea, which is very exciting. We're also going to establish and deepen our partnership with the Machinist Institute. As I mentioned to you, they are the premier training institution. We've had discussions about partnering together, sharing curriculum, sharing best practices, and when available, partner with them in jointly going after federal funding to support both of the programs. And I will tell you that as we roll out our program, there's some folks in Long Beach in the workforce development side that have already expressed interest and perhaps at some point developing a West Coast partnership of Seattle, Bay Area, and Long Beach. Like you and all your programs also, we're committed to intentional focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And therefore, we're targeting those underserved communities that heretofore have not been participating on jobs and opportunities related to the waterfront. Also have a linkage with the maritime industry. There will be some individuals that this piques their interest. They want to pursue higher education. So we'll develop a partnership with CSU Maritime to be able to provide that pathway for those individuals. And we really wanted to sell a proposal to the state. So we developed a partnership with museum ships. Now in the city of Richmond, we have the Red Oak Victory. And it's unimpressive because of the lack of maintenance, a lack of resources to maintain that ship. In our model, as the students are going through the class and they're learning to weld, to paint, to do the grinding, to do the electrical, the machining, we're going to ask those students to, by way of a community service now on Saturdays, apply those newly learned skills to help benefit museum ships here throughout the Bay Area, and to have a pot of money to be able to provide them a stipend while they're doing that. So not only are they getting the training, they're giving back to the community, but we're also enriching that training experience by the hands-on. With water transportation, we're also in active discussions with the IBU and MMPs around developing a regional coordinated approach. As I shared with you also is what we want to develop, if you may, a pre-apprenticeship program that leads to their apprenticeship program. And that pre-apprenticeship program could include information sessions and orientations and ride-alongs on ferries as part of the orientation so they can see the work that the deckhands are doing. And that way they can make informed choices whether this is the career, this is the training that they want to pursue. As they participate in this orientation and these ride-alongs, those individuals that demonstrate the strong and sincere interest will be connecting them with IBU and for their 1 week training and also placement on the hiring hall, which is their process that they use. We'll provide the individual supportive services while they're going through the orientation, while they're going through that 1 week with IBU, and before they get a job to make sure that they have some means of support to sustain themselves and be able to provide them with transportation assistance once they land that first job. In regards to the industry board, we want to make sure that this is a working board. This is not a board that shows up to meetings to rubber stamp staff recommendations, but it's a board that's going to roll up their sleeves, bring in their expertise, their energy, their connection, their resources to really help us develop what we know can be really a world-class training program. The role of the board is, first of all, to adopt a curriculum. So individuals, as they complete the training, will receive an industry-recognized certification. The board will also approve the prerequisites for training. We want to make sure that there's initial vetting up front to make sure that those candidates are the best fit for the training program and that this industry is the best fit for the individuals. We don't want to set anybody up for failure if they just don't meet the basic requirements for the training or for employment. The board will also develop and approve the first source hiring agreement. We're asking the board to also commit resources. We have a number of gaps in our training model, and we're going to be asking the board members to help us address those funding gaps. We're also asking industry employers to provide guest speakers to the classroom, also guest speakers to the high school students, as I referenced. And the board will also be responsible for reviewing the performance and providing recommendations. And we'll also want them to actively recruit their industry partners to support and maybe even participate in the program. And here is a roster of the industry board companies, the industry board members that we have spoken to. Each of these companies, each of these members, to invite them to serve on this board. And as you look at the companies, it really represents to a great extent the who's who in the maritime industry in the Bay Area. We wanted to make sure that these were all heavy hitters in the industry and individuals with the ability to commit resources and make decisions on behalf of their organization. Captain Patrick Murphy, you're on that list, so thank you again for your time. Bishop and Yad and Bill Elliott has agreed to be our chair of this board, and those of you that know Bill and his history here in the Bay Area, it speaks for itself. Pleased to announce that WETA has also agreed to have a member on there, and also Andy Vermeer from MTC has agreed to participate. This is more of the list of the members: Marine Exchange, the Machinists Union, IBU, the Labor's Representative, CSU Maritime also will have a seat. And then our community partners in the form of West Oakland Job Resource Center, probation, and the 2 workforce development boards that we're working closely with right now, Alameda and Contra Costa. We've had some initial discussions with Joshua out of San Francisco. They gave us a letter of support from the last grant, and we'll be looking to bring them on board as a partner also. And really want to underscore the priorities, the things that the Working Waterfront Coalition have in common with this board and the work of WETA. And we're all committed to ensure that there's a pipeline of trained individuals in this particular industry. And also supporting the expansion of water transportation services in the Bay Area. Your RM3 moving forward really lays the groundwork for that expansion. And also sustaining and growing the maritime industry and sector here in the Bay Area. And our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion is something that is embedded, it is baked into our model. And as Lauren mentioned, also the opportunities to support and align DBE efforts. So as we are interacting and engaging with those companies, one, to hire the graduates of our program, but also to help them get the necessary certifications and access to contracting opportunities, which in turn opens up the doors for them to hire a graduate. I would be remiss if I didn't come right up front and say, we thoroughly enjoyed this presentation and this opportunity, but we really want to engage in a discussion of how do we expand and how do we deepen our partnership. One, your participation on that industry board is absolutely key. Letters of support and commitment for our grants, and each grant application, it does require a demonstration of the partners and written commitments and support for the work that we do. Up to this point, I'm pleased to say that WETA has been a partner, has provided those letters of support, and that first $1 million that I mentioned that we've already received in part was because of that support. We'd ask for you to continue that. Also to actively promote the various strategies of the working water, or the various components of it, the high school, the training, the DBE, the DEI. And also encourage all your partners and subcontractors to support and to hire qualified graduates in the program. Also, as we tilt up the marine trades short-term training program, as Bobby mentioned, we have a short list of potential sites. We'd like for you to engage us in a discussion about the opportunity to be able to access your operations and maintenance facilities when it's appropriate, when it makes sense, for us to be able to set up those customized, specialized training programs. You have the infrastructure, you have the buildings, you have the equipment. We have the hungry students that want to be able to participate. We'd like a deeper discussion on what that could look like. I also mentioned the pre-apprenticeship program for the water transportation having a ride-along. We'd like to engage with you in a discussion about what partnership could look like. These students very likely will be coming to a community-based organization in Oakland to do the orientation. The possibility that as part of that orientation, they could also catch the ferry right there in Oakland or Alameda and ride along for a few hours, so that way they can see the deckhands at work, the station agents at work. And then again, be able to make an informed decision, is this what I want to do? We'd also like to have a discussion about the opportunities for program development and sustainability. As Bobby mentioned, this is not a one-year project. This is really long-term. We're building it for the future. We're taking our time. We're being very intentional, making sure that we have a very strong foundation, strong partnership, build something really for the future. Sustainability is absolutely key. And the ability to be able to pay and have a grant writer to help us to continue to bring the resources is absolutely critical. Unfortunately, grant dollars do not allow an expense for grant writing, which doesn't make sense. But those are federal and state rules that we have to adhere to. And the other thing to consider for this board to consider hosting an annual event with your partners, with your vendors, with your subcontractors, that gives us the opportunity to raise awareness, but also raise funding for the work that we're doing. That is my presentation. Those are my comments, and I welcome questions or comments if that is appropriate.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Baca and Mr. Winston. Thank you for going to the effort of, putting this together. I think it's a very thoughtful, informative presentation. And, I obviously sitting in this chair, we value this incredibly, be able to look forward, understand what the needs of the region are going to be and what the possibilities look like and what we need to do to get from here to there is critical. So, this Working Waterfront Coalition couldn't have come at a better time. And so we want to congratulate you on putting forward the work, on gaining the grants to really get going and having the resources necessary to make it real. From the beginning, putting together a meaningful coalition of people who are actively engaged. And, when you bring people who do similar things, but they don't always do it together, it adds up a lot of times to something greater than the sum of the parts. So I think it's, wonderful that you're doing it and the success so far. I had a couple of really quick questions. I really appreciate the focus on the high schools where the kids, I have one who graduated the other day, and I know they go through high school and they sort of in some ways meander through, maybe they're headed to college or whatever they think they're doing, but to have this kind of opportunity present itself in the high school is meaningful. Now, some of the kids end up going to community college, and I was wondering, is there been any thought about, Contra Costa College, or we have, I think, something like 28 community colleges in the Bay Area, of involving some of those, where this, because they do such a good job of providing certificates and very specialized training.
Sure. No, absolutely. The community colleges are on our radar, and I've had extensive experience in working with them in the past. We will be engaging in those discussions. Our focus up to this point has been in that short-term training. A lot of the community colleges are still fixed on that semester system, which oftentimes doesn't have a lot of the flexibility, but the opportunity to partner with them for the resources and the programs is certainly there.
Absolutely. And I was wondering, I've mentioned this anytime I mention anything, is that with all of the investment that WETA is going to make, we have $300 million of capital assigned to us from Regional Measure 3, and you and Mr. Winston both talked about the future in terms of wind energy and what the requirements are going to be for that. If you go back a few generations, the vessels of America were built here in these shipyards, and today that's not the case to any great degree. And was wondering about what is the potential for applying this effort to be able to bring shipbuilding from inception back to the Bay Area.
It certainly lays the groundwork for that broader discussion, but making sure that, number one priority for employers is the workforce there. Can the workforce be there? This really opens up that conversation that we have a broad partnership, a focused training program in this particular sector that could really move that conversation forward.
That's a very specialized set of skills that I don't think we currently have, but I think would be very exciting. And I think for folks like Mare Island and Alameda and others, the potential of that, San Francisco, would be, I think, very welcome.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think we're totally ripe to do that. Also, the transitioning of the petrochemical employers. There's been some
Yeah.
refineries that have downsized or shut down. Those individuals, to a great extent, have already a lot of those skill sets, and what's the opportunity now to transition that workforce into this area?
and I would just mention in terms of the board, the Solano County, I don't think it was one of the ones that you mentioned, but should be certainly included.
Absolutely. I see Tiffany Jones is online with us, but we've had discussions with Solano, and they, after San Francisco, Solano is definitely coming on board, I can tell you, as part of the part.
Thank you again. Let me open it up for comments and questions from our directors.
You
Go ahead.
nailed all the questions that I was thinking about as far as Solano County Workforce Development Board and the community colleges. I think those are wonderful opportunities to have. And I was excited to see Mare Island Dry Docks because I know they're doing some significant expansion, and I think it was like 900 more jobs that they're gonna have. So super excited to see Richard Palmer on there, as well as Cal Maritime, of course. So.
Yeah, I am borderline speechless because this has been on my mind for so long, but going from thought to action and beyond in such an exhaustive way is I'm floored. I am so excited to see this because I did not think it would be possible, but you guys have done it. And the focus on DEI and creating new opportunities and economic mobility for a whole new generation and existing generations. I am so proud of whatever input went into this process in order for you to deliver it today. The DBE training and support for a fee, I love it. It's just what we need because it's such a convoluted process and you don't know if you meet the requirements, and you might get halfway through and you've spent all of this money and all of a sudden you realize that, nah, not gonna make it.
Yeah.
And so having all of this in one place it's wonderful. And it opens up the opportunity for new industry movers and shakers to come into the Bay Area because there's a future that is identified and right there for them. We have a path. And so I appreciate the design thinking and the human design centered thinking that went into this process. You have managed to capture all of the stakeholders that are of importance and asked yourselves all of the right questions in order to create this package that is easy to understand and sell. And I couldn't be prouder. This is fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, I won't repeat what everybody else had to say. I agree with every single comment. It's everything that I'm passionate about, from labor and working with underserved communities. All that is awesome. I see you got some people that have been around the maritime for a while. You got Don Cruzado up there. I know he's been with the machinists for a long time. That's great. With full confidence in him and Bobby. I mean, obviously Bobby. Doing what he does is like unbelievable. I agree with you. He comes up with an idea and then it becomes everybody else's problem.
You stated it better than I did. Yeah.
So I love it. And then I'll say, as one of those kids that went like this through the high school system for the first year, and then a product of the juvenile probationary system, and spent some time there too as a youth, I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had. Unless there was some role models in my life that geared me towards the industry. And I can tell you right now, I don't think much has changed. That lacks in the juvenile system. It goes beyond, juvenile hall and probation. We have a lot of adolescent group homes that are in the Bay Area that I spent, 15 months out when I was 16 years old. And unless I had some people that took an interest in me and had an opportunity, I wouldn't have ended up where I was at today. And I know there's a lot of kids out there that unfortunately people don't take an interest in them. So I see you have Alameda County, Contra Costa, I think Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, Solano County, I hope you guys expand and reach out to all those,
Yeah.
you know, those institutions, because I think a lot of our youth, with this kind of work and not, you know, going to high school and having to go to a four-year college and focus on tech.
Yeah.
If they were introduced to jobs like this, we would save a lot more lives and a lot more heartache. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And anything we can do, keep asking, because your list to me is short. I think WETA here and our board support anything that you guys go after. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'll close out. So I'm very pleased to see this as well. It's something, frankly, we've been doing for many years now in the facilities management world. We face the same problems. Our numbers have a few more zeros after them than your 600 to 800, but the problem is the same. So I really appreciate the foresight that you have here, particularly as we're relaunching, I guess, our strategic plan. We definitely need those numbers and more to support that. Importantly, I think I do want to build on Chair Wonderman's suggestion about the community colleges. We've had a lot of luck, particularly reaching adults that are wanting to change careers and through the night classes that are offered at the community colleges and trade fairs as well. So job fairs, trade fairs, those kinds of things have been really good pipelines for our efforts. That said, we're thousands of people short still in the industry. So I love the idea of intercepting at the high school level. Too many youth in the Bay Area, which shocks me, have never been on the Bay, have really never touched the Bay. It isn't so price prohibitive. I think it's just cultural. So I'd love to see you build on that as you already have, and really appreciate the perspective that you're bringing to the table. So to build on what all my colleagues have said, kudos to all of you that have crafted and architected this, and however we can support, we are absolutely here to do that, because you are in turn supporting us and our mission. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wouldn't be shy about adding the attribute for emergency response to the overall tenor of it, but I just really appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, directors. Thanks, Mr. Baca. That was a great presentation. Very uplifting. And we look forward to working with you on this as things develop. Thanks, Bobby.
Chair Wonderman, there are more reports, but
Yes, go ahead.
there's some public comment on
Oh,
this
okay,
item
sure.
specifically. I was going to suggest we pause for that and then pick up the staff reports later, if that's appropriate.
Sure. Do we have folks signed up to comment?
Yes, the first speaker, Tiffany Jones.
Go ahead, Ms. Jones.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiffany Jones, and I serve as the district director for Assemblymember Lori Wilson. We cover all of Solano County, including a certain portion of Contra Costa County. Thank you all for your hard work on this project. This is something that the Assembly member 103,000% supports, and really want to make sure that our office is kept aware of the progress, and then also just making sure whatever we can do to ensure that this implementation happens. If there's any questions, that we are at the table. Thank you, Sal and Bobby. Thank you, WETA, for sitting down and engaging with our office over a year ago when I first took over, and really educating me on the working waterfront and what this actually can do for the region. This is a wonderful project. Every time I hear about WETA and this, I smile because I see the endless possibilities of what can happen. Our member fully support this. Like I said, it's a quality of life issue for her, and any way that we can facilitate a better quality of life for our residents in this district, we are in full support of. Again, I just wanted to say thank you all. And again, on behalf of Assemblymember Wilson, you have our support. And if you need anything, please feel free to contact our district office, myself, or our capital office. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Jones. And Assemblymember Wilson's been terrific, and really, pleased to have her and yourself in our camp. I see Don Cruzado has his hand raised. Don?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don Cruzado, I'm Directing Business Rep in Machinist District 190, and we're just thrilled and delighted to be part of this project. For a number of years, we've been wrestling with the shortage of, we represent people in a lot of skilled trades all throughout the transportation industries, machinists, mechanics, people that work on the waterfront. Those of us of a certain age remember when shop classes were in almost every high school. They haven't been for a few decades, and now we're reaping the whirlwind of that. The fact that there is an extraordinary shortage of, we have jobs that pay $30 to $50 an hour that are going begging. And it's just, it's sad that there's this disconnect with these fabulous jobs with great benefits, and yet there's thousands of people in the Bay Area who desperately need good work. So this is, I think, a great program to make that connection. Our colleagues up in Seattle at District 751, which principally represents Boeing Company, set up the Machinist Institute a few years ago specifically to do these type of projects to promote training, not just in aerospace, but in ship repair, in waterfront, mechanical, the whole range of skills. And they've had a lot of success the last few years, to the point where they're actually interested in expanding coast-wide, specifically coming down to the Bay Area. So we've sort of offered ourselves up to work with them to help pilot this thing. We work extensively with the community colleges. We have existing apprenticeships for mechanics and machinists using College of Alameda, Laney College, Contra Costa College. Be happy to bring in Solano as well. So whatever we can do to help make this thing a success, we're just delighted to participate in it. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Greatly appreciate your involvement and support in this. It's terrific. Joyce Guy?
Hello, everybody. Joyce Guy, Executive Director of the Job Center. So first of all, being an individual who actually worked in the shipyards at Southwest Marina, I get it, the dynamics of everything. And then coming back, and when the shipyards work over in San Francisco started dying out, I became an iron worker. So understanding the value of having the skill sets that come out of working a waterfront worker or working with it's multi, you can carry them anywhere in the world, learn how to read blueprints. But the thing that I'm most excited about is the Job Center. We are what you call TDL driven, transportation, distribution, and logistics. So the movements of goods, no matter how you move it, we are working to build out programs around giving people access to being able, and when the maritime, the more I know, the more I know, the more I know, the more excited I am to know more about the maritime industry and the opportunities. And I think someone said it, we are right here on the bay, and there are people who've never been on a ferry, have no idea. And where does it start? Like it did for some of us back in the day, auto mechanic shop in high school. Some of these high schools still have some of the machinery. I was talking to Sal about, I think it was Kennedy, that still had the welding and the brakes shop over there. So we're really excited to move forward. We're regional. We have regional partnerships. We're with Solano College. We work with various colleges on doing various training, when we do our one-offs. So we are ready to lock and load and roll with you guys. I'm just so excited that Sal and all of you guys have been inviting to have the Job Center be a part of this amazing venture that's going to be a national model. I just see it. I see it. That's what we're going to be.
You sound pretty positive, and we're pretty positive too. Rhonda Boykin? Rhonda?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rhonda Boykin, the Executive Director for the Alameda County Workforce Development Board. And one of my many roles is to ensure that we have a strong workforce system that operates in our county to help prepare job seekers for good paying quality jobs to meet the hiring needs of employers. So we are very excited to be a part of this coalition to help meet the hiring needs. You all have a huge need for workers, and so we're excited to be a part. We have partnerships with the community colleges, as been mentioned, as well as we have a partnership with all of the workforce development boards across the 10 counties. So when you talk about Solano, when we get to those stages of the planning, we will be prepared and equipped and have a table to have these conversations to expand the services. So excited about the opportunity, excited to contribute and to be the fiscal lead should we be successful in receiving additional funding to help meet the objectives of this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boykin. Marine Exchange, now that's a good name. I would like a name like that.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity. Sal, Bobby, you clearly know how to bring together an amazing group of people. I'm honored to be a part of this. The Marine Exchange hits 175 years old next year. And we were around when the working waterfront was building ships. And I'm really excited to be around again when that starts, or be around when that starts to happen again. On Friday, I hosted a visit out to Bay Ship and Yacht. Mr. Bill Elliott was kind enough to show us around his shipyard, and we spoke to a young man named Nicholas Busto. Bill Elliott was kind enough to hire him recently. Nicholas went to high school down in San Jose, and he was one of those folks that never got to the Bay during his childhood. He graduated from high school and went to an electrician trade school there in San Jose, and then spent several months afterwards bouncing around looking for a good job in San Jose. He had no idea of the working waterfront. He's now introduced to the working waterfront, and he is excited to start his new career on the working waterfront. Nicholas had the benefit of a year of technical training after high school. This program has an opportunity to bring that opportunity to a lot more young people, and I am really happy to be a part of it. I'm looking forward to helping out as a potential clearinghouse. We know everyone on the waterfront at the Marine Exchange, and all of our membership is well, on the working waterfront. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk, and I'm really looking forward to being a part of this for the long term.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Go ahead, Robert Estrada, and then Marina Secretano. And do we have anyone else signed up, Melanie?
Nobody else. That's not-
Okay, go ahead.
So first of all, 175 years for Marine Exchange. That's a long time. We're only 105 years. I suddenly feel like we're the upstarts. Anyway, I'm Robert Estrada, the Regional Director of the Inland Boatmen's Union. And I just wanted to say, first of all, that it's been a privilege to be part of these discussions from the onset and to see it evolve. Certainly when it started up, there were reasons for us to, be apprehensive and to wonder if, what the fit would be, how the approach would be. We have a lot of protocols and traditions that some might see as arcane, but we see them as very important for fairness and transparency and our historical approach to working on the waterfront here. And rather than those being in conflict, rather than seeking to displace, working with Bobby and Sal here, we're seeing more of an interface, and that's a positive thing. And I think that the Sal and Bobby's stewardship here is to be commended. And I look forward to the IBU being part of this going forward. And our regional director, Marina Secretano, has been a core to this as well. And I guess she's mixed up.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada, for this and the partnership you play with us. We really appreciate it. And Marina, glad to see you're going to be on the board.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
I appreciate that. I'm driving and I apologize, but I'm trying to get to another important meeting. But I just wanted to say that I am proud of the work that's being done and excited to see what we can do. First, I just want to shout out to the California Labor Federation, because without their support, these grants from the workforce development really wouldn't be forthcoming. So that's a very important part that we serve as labor, and just want to point that out and acknowledge them. And, just some comments around, we started a class internally in the IBU in 1998 because we saw a need to have some orientation and, preliminary training to keep people safer out in the industry. And it's really made a difference. But what is very difficult for us is the recruitment, the ability to attract people has been difficult at different times. And I don't think I have to tell anybody here that trying to get a workforce that has the ethics, the work ethics of 80-year-olds is a little bit different these days. People aren't looking at the same longevity in their career and so on. So we sort of have had like an opening closing door for the last 5 years, much more so than usual. But I think that it's an exciting opportunity for us to partner and try to solve some of the recruitment problems that we're all seeing, particularly in the maritime industry, up and down the coast and probably nationwide, to be honest about it. But I think that Bobby and Sal have done a great job. Bobby and I go way back, and the WETA, for what it is today, is a lot of work that we did in the ground, work that we did early on. And I'm always impressed when I hear the vast projects that are being undertaken. So I'm enthusiastic to work with everybody on this. I know we can make amazing things happen. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Secretano. Great to have you aboard. And I've been in my job almost 20 years, but my regret is I didn't do it on a boat. Now I'm on a boat now, but it doesn't go anywhere. So looking back, so it's kind of hard to understand why a young person wouldn't want to consider these careers and these opportunities, because it's it's such a tremendous way to contribute to society and live your life. So I really hope we're successful in getting the word out, and can't wait to provide those tours and figure out how to get kids checking this out. I think it's going to draw a lot of people. Artemis Davenport.
Yes, thank you so much. This is Artemis A. Davenport. I am with the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District. And I just want to take the time just to comment and share the excitement. I had the opportunity to meet Bobby and Sal and to even be a part of this project, thanks to Lauren that introduced Golden Gate to Bobby and Sal. And just to hear all of the excitement on the call and the willingness to put the work forward to really make this program successful. And I agree with Joyce. This is going to be a national program. There's so many people willing and see the historical lack that we've had in this industry. So I just want to comment that I'm very excited to be a part of the project. And thanks again, Lauren, for bringing Golden Gate on. And we're going head first, and we're diving deep, and we're going to see some progress. I really see that with this group. So thank you for the opportunity to share and make that comment.
Thank you very much. I know we're going to get some great recruits, and I want to call that WETA gets first crack at all those people. But I think there'll be enough to go around so that Golden Gate can have their opportunity as well. Thank you for participating. Appreciate it. Any other folks wish to testify, please?
Hi, my name is Carolyn Morgan.
Otherwise, you're not recorded, Carolyn.
We need to hear you for posterity.
So my name is Carolyn Horgan, and I'm representing the Master Mates and Pilots Union. Sly Hunter, Captain Sly Hunter, who is the regional rep, was hoping to be here, but he had got pulled into another meeting and couldn't make it. So I just would like to say the MMP enthusiastically supports this program. And it seems to me, it's, as other people have said, it's a long time coming, because of my other role, when I worked for Blue and Gold, we had great union jobs with great benefits, great pension benefits, great wages, but it was really hard to get people. So I told Bobby, I think this is one of his best ideas. And I'm really very happy to see this go, and I know he'll take it to the end.
Thanks, Carolyn. Anyone else like to testify? You must have a point of view.
And thanks for the opportunity to speak. Pat Murphy, President Blue and Gold Fleet, or Captain Pat Murphy, as Bobby keeps referring to me. And actually, there is some importance to that because Blue and Gold Fleet, we've always kind of hired and then trained within. So long time ago, I was a deckhand and then moved up into the wheelhouse, eventually into the office. And a lot of our employees have moved up into the wheelhouse and from being guest representatives to being deckhands. And I'm worried as we move into the future and transportation growth, an aging workforce that's going to get ready to retire. Plus, we still want to encourage our employees to move up. But they can only move up if we have a strong base at the very beginning of it. So when Bobby came to me with this program, and Carolyn's right, it's one of your better programs. And I got to meet Saul Slotka for the first time. We were all in right away. And so as you saw, I'll be a board member. Blue and Gold Fleet firmly supports this program. Super excited about moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, Captain Murphy. Other folks who'd like to say a word?
Captain Drew.
Can't see.
Oh, he doesn't have a hand up, but maybe he does. Right here.
Drew?
Is that me?
Yeah, that's you.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Didn't see your hand. I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's no problem. I was kind of thinking about what I'd say. I met with Bobby a little while ago. I guess I'd be one of those industry partners. I'm a ship assist captain in San Francisco Bay for about 12 years now. And I'm really excited about kind of spreading some of the knowledge of like, hey, you can work on the waterfront. There's jobs that can be had down here. I want that message to get to students. I want it to get to high schools, community colleges, and people who haven't heard about that sort of thing. Black, Indigenous, people of color, that's our community that Oakland and San Francisco and Berkeley and Emeryville all is. And they need to know about that so they have more options. So I'm just real excited to offer what I can do in my professional capacity and an organizational capacity too, with Bobby and this program moving forward. So just happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Others who would like to make a comment? Melanie, anyone else signed up for that?
No one else has signed up.
Okay, well, again, this has been terrific and eye-opening and reassuring and exciting. So, thanks, Bobby and Sal. This was phenomenal start for us working on this. So thank you again. I'll turn it back to you, Seamus.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman. We just have a couple of additional reports of staff. The financial statements are in your packet, and you'll see that we are tracking very closely, probably going to fall just short of the fare revenue projections for the fiscal year. Amazing that we came that close, even with the really tough winter that we had and the weather over the winter and the way that it affected ridership. We were able to rebound really strongly. Ridership is definitely spiking, and Gabe Chan will talk more about that in the ridership and recovery report. Thankfully, gas prices have moderated, and so we came very close to projecting an accurate fuel price for the year. Just kudos to Erin and her team for being able, and the whole team for being able to get us close to projections on the fiscal year. We'll of course have a full report when we close out the fiscal year later on this summer. I'll turn it over, Gabe, to you for a ridership report.
And we still have 3.5 weeks to make the fare box for the year. So
it's true. I should not
load
be
them
so
in.
negative.
Good afternoon, directors. My name is Gabriel Chan, Transportation Planner at WETA. So this ridership report encompasses the full numbers from April. We did see a strong resurgence in both the weekday and the weekend ridership in April over March, especially that Tuesday to Thursday time period. We're back to about 70% of the pre-pandemic ridership for that Tuesday to Thursday. And then weekend ridership is actually overperforming even beyond kind of what we have. Saturdays, we're at 133% of 2019, and Sundays were at 126%. So the weekends are really kind of carrying that ridership spike, and then sort of the consistent Tuesday to Thursday commuters are driving the weekday. The one thing that we did kind of see March to April was the effect of the weather. You remember March had kind of a string of inclement weather on Tuesday specifically, and the data kind of bore that out. Tuesday was in March the lowest performing weekday, and I think Saturdays were almost as good as the Tuesdays in March. So in April, with kind of the better weather on the weekdays, we're seeing that ridership come back. And then another thing of note is that the April ridership has brought us back to the summertime highs of last year. And so it's kind of an encouraging sign as we kind of enter the summer months moving forward that we're already kind of at where we were for the peak of the summer last year. And then a quick note on special events. We had 4 weekend SF Giants home games in April, and the the ballpark short top performed really strongly. We had almost 1,300 riders for those 4 games. And so that's almost full boats basically for all of that. And then as expected, kind of the Oakland Alameda Special Events Service is still strong, had about 3,900 riders for the weekday games. The Vallejo service is lagging a little bit behind, but that's consistent kind of with what we've been seeing. So, happy to take questions or comments.
Do we have any with the tourist season hitting and Pride Month? Do we have promotional plans for to see if we can get more visitors on board?
I don't know if Tom can speak to that.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question. We are planning to come back to the board next month with our marketing program for the summer. As a preview, we currently, if anyone binged any Hulu over the past week, you may have seen one of our ads that's currently running on Hulu. We talked previously about getting into the streaming market ahead of the election cycle so that we don't have to pay as much as the GOP nominees for that ad space. And so we have one ad running there currently. We just launched some Latino social media influencer outreach that we'll be talking about in the near future that launched over the weekend as well. And then in terms of surging service, we saw this last year. We did this a couple weekends last year where we took our existing really robust weekend schedule and worked with operations and planning to devise a schedule where we can plug in some extra trips by adding an extra crew on the routes that need it to get more trips, knowing that the passenger's going to be there and we don't want them to get left behind. And so Pride is the next one on the docket to try that out, just to meet the exceptional demand. That was our biggest, with the exception of Fleet Weekend. Pride last year was our biggest weekend day of the PRP. So we expect that will continue this year, especially if the weather is good. But definitely we're leaning all the way into making sure that now that kids are out of school this week or next week, people do those day trips here. So all of our marketing channels are firing for that.
Questions, comments from the directors?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, welcome Tom right back up for the customer experience survey results.
Thanks, Seamus. For Wonderman board members, just wanted to report back on a customer experience survey that we did in March and April of this year. You may remember that last summer, we did our full onboard passenger survey, which is a really big undertaking, fairly resource intensive and expensive to get a statistically significant sample of our riders to learn demographic data, passenger satisfaction data, and everything else. We presented those results to you in December. And you may remember the top line number that we were really proud of, which is that 99% of our passengers said that they were satisfied with their ferry experience. Of those, not of those, but overall 76% said they were highly satisfied. We only asked those 2 passenger satisfaction questions on that survey. It was about their ferry experience and it was their feelings on the ferry system overall, both really high. We wanted to drill down a little bit. And so we did a less formal digital opt-in survey of our passengers in March and April. About 400 passengers responded. We reached these passengers through onboard messaging and our email lists. So we know that they're passengers. We're not just asking the general public of the Bay Area how they feel about the ferries. We're asking people who are actually on the boats. We drilled down into a number of categories that are listed in the board memo. We want to dig deeper than anecdotes. You know, we get feedback from passengers, often from passengers that are not satisfied with their experience, as it is the case for any business or service. We hear from the people who are not happy. We actually, surprisingly, hear a lot of times from people who are happy as well, but we want to get past the anecdotes and get into a little more rigorous data. No real surprises in terms of the experience segment questions that we asked, the things that you would expect us to perform really well on, like safety, cleanliness, crew interactions, reliability, on-time performance. We performed really well on all of those. The ones where we performed less good, also no surprises there. Wi-Fi is a consistent complaint that we hear from passengers and that we have over the years. One that we're actively working on. We have a project that's in the budget that you'll be considering today to finish the work of upgrading the Wi-Fi, not just for passenger access, but also to ensure that our operational systems that require that connection on the vessel, such as our ticketing system, real-time tracking, and other systems, can all stay connected throughout the spots in the bay that don't have great service. We in addition to the areas, Wi-Fi and another area I'll mention in a moment, we also see some room for improvement in some of the items where we performed pretty well, but we think we can do better. One of those is terminal signage and wayfinding. So we have some ongoing work that we'll tell you about next month to improve some of the terminal signage, in addition to our participation in the regionals wayfinding and signage project that MTC is heading up at the behest of the Blue Ribbon Task Force that Chair Wonderman sat on. We're really excited about that work to really tie us further in with the honestly really good transit access that we have at a number of our terminals, including downtown San Francisco, Vallejo, which is very close to the Vallejo Transit Center, and Oakland, where there's a lot of AC transit service that is pretty close to the ferry terminal. And if we can connect people to that, that'll be great. One area of passenger information where we sought and received deeper feedback was our rider alert system. So before last summer, when we introduced real-time tracking, we had a pretty bespoke system in which dispatchers, when they found out something was happening, they would log into the system and send out an alert. People could get it via text, email, or it would actually call their phone and give them a robot voice of what was happening. That system was not good for transit. It was built for school districts. It's called Blackboard Connect, and it was really a reverse 911 notification system for school districts. So if your child is absent, they use a system like this to call you and let you know your child is absent or something. Not built for transit systems, very cumbersome, really hard, really bad user experience for ferry riders to sign up for these alerts. And so we discontinued that when we rolled out the real-time tracking. We added push notifications to the app that Anchor developed for us as part of our ticketing system. And we sort of experimented. We started asking passengers, how are you finding out about us? We use this survey as a tool to find out, how are you finding out about disruptions in the ferry service? Or if we have a schedule change, how do you learn about that? We found out that people are overall pretty satisfied with the status quo. They're finding out about it. One of the top ways that people find out about it, as a ferry rider, I see this, every day, is word of mouth in the queue, right? Where's the ferry? I don't know. Oh, I saw this alert, right? That's not an optimal way. It works, but it's not the optimal way to get information to most people as possible. So through Swiftly, which is our real-time transit information provider that we contracted with last year, which has been a good service for us, they finally have a partnership that allows automated SMS and email notifications whenever our dispatchers put in a real-time service alert or we put in a schedule change. It'll automatically translate that to an SMS and an email that people can sign up for. It's relatively affordable. We're going to be working forward to bring that into being this summer. Our key concern was our dispatchers at Alameda already do so much. We don't want them to have to log into a separate system. If they're already inputting Swiftly the real-time rider alert, we just want that to seamlessly shoot out to people. And that was the thing we couldn't find for the past year. We finally found it, and we're going to be able to put that into effect, really addressing a customer need that we found from this survey. And then I want to touch on the one other area where we're falling short of passenger expectations, which is concessions. We know this is a really important amenity. It really differentiates the ferry from other travel options, including driving. So we're working with Blue and Gold Fleet. We've worked with the team there and their concessionaire to enhance availability, quality of the concessions available, and consistency of coverage at concessions. We know that it's a more difficult environment for concessions businesses, given we have lower ridership on the mornings than we did before, obviously. But we also had a long list of comments. We included an open-ended question at the end of the survey section on concessions, like, tell us what we need to know about concessions. A lot of comments back. I sent all of those to Captain Pat to review and take back to the concessionaire. We're meeting with them on a regular basis to find a solution to improve this for the passengers, because we know it's a really important part of the ferry experience. Next steps are next month, we plan to ask your authorization for award of a survey firm for the next 5 years. We're working through the evaluation process there. We hope to have that locked in so that we can continue our surveying work, both the formal onboard passenger survey, in addition to these other surveys that we do to keep a pulse on the ridership. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, board members?
Very quickly, of course, a satisfaction survey should lead to actions, right? But having it so tight in just a couple of pages is it's excellent, because you see exactly the things that we hit the lowest on, the items that we hit the lowest on are the ones that we're trying to really address. And so again, thank you to staff and to your team for putting these things into action in order to improve immediately for our riders and future riders.
I think I mentioned to Seamus, I had a meeting with the governor and I was talking about the transportation fiscal cliff, and in context of that, I mentioned our 99% satisfaction rate as a standard that other agencies should have to live up to. So I know he appreciated that, but I thought I'd get it in there. So I did.
As a former member of the WTA board, he would,
of course, I also promised him a ride on the sea change sometime in the 21st century. So I know that's coming. Thanks.
Thanks, Chairwoman. That concludes the reports from staff.
Okay, thank you. That was great. Really appreciate it. All right, let's move on to item 6, which is the consent calendar. There's 3 items, A, B, and C. 2 of the two most recent board minutes. C is extending participation in the Clipper Start pilot program. Anyone wish to remove an item? Any board member wish to remove an item? Anyone from the public wish to remove an item?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
We have a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Boyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Del Bono,
Yes.
Director Duke.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 7, approve fiscal year 2023-24 budget and salary schedule.
Good afternoon. Last month, we had an extensive presentation for you of what was in the budget. You know, we did a presentation. The full PowerPoint is still on our website for anyone who's interested. This month, we are bringing it back to you for adoption. Included in the packet this month are the resolutions that are required by the funding agencies that require resolutions. Not all of them do. The only difference in the numbers from last month, I've outlined for you in the staff report. As Tom was talking about real-time information, it occurred to me, everything is connected. When you improve one thing, it leads to other improvements. So for this month, the real-time information has led to better information about how the costs are allocated by boat and by service. And we were working through that. Arthi was a big part of that, and Mike. And as we were working through that, we were trying to get it into your May draft and didn't quite get there, but we were able to incorporate it into the final draft. And really what we found is the category of system expenses, which is expenses that occur no matter where a boat runs, but how big the expense is related to the service. So we took a look at and reallocated based on better information that led to an understanding of the costs that were allocated to the Alameda Oakland route were higher. And so we reduced those and reallocated to the other services based on the metrics underneath that. And so that's outlined in your packet.
So that's a financial reallocation, but not a service reallocation. It's just reflecting.
Correct. And it's not even an overall cost difference. It's the same cost. We have the same fuel costs, but since you're not filling up, with your car, you drive one car, you know how much fuel you use. But when you use one boat and you have interlining of services, you have sharing of resources, you have to figure out how to take those costs and allocate them to each route. For example, I know one of the big changes has to do with when you have spare vessels and you use those boats on all your services, how do you allocate the cost of just maintaining that spare vessel or engine work on the spare vessel? How do you figure out how to allocate that to each service, each route? So some of the work that we did over the last 6 weeks related to that and ended up reallocating some of those spare vessel costs differently. And we think it's going to show up as we start doing the budget to actual reports after July 1. We think those will be more accurate and more reflective of the services. I mean, there's always, when you have a shared service, it doesn't correspond to exactly what that service costs every single day. So if you were, for example, to decide to eliminate a service, you wouldn't see all those savings because some of those are shared costs that don't go away.
Right.
But basically, it's just constant and incremental improvement in how we do things. 2 years ago, there was an effort to redo the budget to better show the allocation of costs, not just by purchase expense or what we pay Blue and Gold, but by vessel, by what are the vessel costs, what are the fuel costs, what are the facility costs. So it's just every year working on figuring out how to make the budget a more logical and understandable document.
Great, thank you.
That's really it. So it's $143.4 million budget that we request that you approve today so that we can start spending money on July 1.
Thank you. So there is, we've already been through it, so I'm not going to ask too many questions, just to acknowledge, since we're going to vote on it, there is a material increase in the overall budget. And I think the reasons for it are explained in the document, and we've discussed, I think, most of that, not everything before, but as we vote on it, we're voting on a budget that's bigger than it was before for a number of reasons. So, members of the board, any comments, questions? Good job. Concerns? Happiness? Good. Well, thank you. And that I think the reallocation. Oh, go ahead.
Lots of happiness. Yes. Just a quick question. How does WETA's planning and administration budget, which includes salaries, wages, contracts, utilities, dues, memberships, leases, etc., compared to other regional or regional transit agencies or local transit agencies in the Bay? So right now in this budget, it says that it's about 6% of the total budget. How does that compare to other agencies?
I'm not an expert at other agencies. I can tell you it is what I would consider to be a de minimis amount. The FTA, here's a good example. The FTA, when they allow you to take overhead and administrative costs and apply it to a project, they don't even want to see the detail on anything that's less than 10% because they consider that legally a de minimis amount. Right. So I think that's one answer. I think there's other answers. We have been a lean organization for a long time because our funding sources were minimal and because RM2 didn't grow over time. I think it has kept us very lean. I think also it's hard to do a comparison because some agencies directly operate their services and their overhead just tends to be bigger because they have to run a full procurement. They, in my old life, at the train, in the train business, I think the overhead there was closer to 25%, but we needed to support we did all the buying, whereas we are paying Captain Pat to do most of the, so I would say I could pull together some numbers for you and let you know next month, but I think it's pretty low compared to others.
Yeah, and I think that's what that's what I'm expecting. And that it is a very, very lean organization. And with the RM3 money, with the expected growth in staff and associated costs over the next couple of years or several years, I just want us to be realistic with what we can do with our current staff and all of that, so that we do staff up as needed with continued growth, both on the capital and operating side. So we don't lose track of that. So
yeah, and I think do you want to mention the APTA, bringing in APTA?
Well, that's our feeling too, is that it's too lean. And so we want to be thoughtful about how we grow to be able to achieve the long-term vision of this agency, and it's time to start doing that. And so we put the 5 new FTEs in next year's fiscal year budget, with the understanding that may not be enough even at the outset to make enough progress. So we're consulting with industry peers through an organization called the American Public Transportation Association. They do a peer review process and invite experts in their field. In this case, it would be experts who have helped grow smaller organizations to be able to implement large capital programs and phase in increases in resources, whether they're permanent dedicated staff or consultants. And how should we be organized to be able to phase in work like that? That's an effort that's going to happen over the next few months, and it's going to inform budget decisions, maybe even within the current fiscal year, depending on what their recommendation is. But surely over the long term, we want to make sure we're learning everything we can from the industry and how it's been done effectively in other places to help inform those decisions that we need to make.
fantastic. And just knowing that we're in the middle of the business plan or effort, it's just wonderful to know that you staff are really thinking about what will it take to actually implement what we have ahead of us, including the RM3 funding now too. So the timing of just knowing what we have ahead of us just for the next year, but also the long term, I think it's fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Albert. Other directors? Questions? Members of the public? Melanie, has anyone signed up on the talk about item 7?
Nobody is sent.
Anyone either here or in the virtual room wish to comment? Raise your hand, call out. Okay, with that, we'll close the public comment period, and thanks again for all the work that went into this. We appreciate it. It's not easy. And
For 1 minute, this is an action.
sorry?
This is an action. With the.
Yeah, we take, I'm gonna come to that. So we'll take, with that, thank you. We'll take a motion on item 7.
I'll move.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba.
Yes.
Director Del Bono.
Yes.
Director Bugh.
Yes.
Congratulations. Item 8, authorize resolutions and actions related to funding to support the fiscal year 2023-24 operating and capital budget. Right back at you.
I'm surprised.
Sorry, I should have recommended that you combine the two. I mean, these are just the resolutions to go along with we have RM1 money for capital, RM2 money for planning and administration, and then RM3, what I said in the staff report is that we're going to try to use up all of our use it or lose it money before we tap into our RM3 funds. And next month, we will probably be coming back to you with resolution and some information, further information on RM3 and how that's going to the process related to that. We need to bring you a 5-year plan in order to access some of our funds. There needs to be an operating agreement, but these are the resolutions to access the funds that are all assumed in the budget document.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments, questions from directors? Anyone signed up to on this item, Melanie?
No one has signed up.
Anyone wish to ask a question, make a comment from the public? Or with that, we'll close the public comment period on this item number 8, and I'll take a motion.
And Chair Wonderman, just of note, the motion should just reflect that there are 3 separate resolutions associated with this item.
So do we need a resolution for each one of the?
No, you can vote to approve all 3, but I just wanted to reflect that.
I move to approve all 3 resolutions.
All right, we have a motion to approve the 3
Second.
and a second to approve the 3. Please call the roll.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Del Polo.
Yes.
Director Dukes.
Yes.
See, these are like the trailer bills of the state. So the real stuff's in here. Okay, item number 9, public comments for non-agendized items. Has anyone signed up to comment on a non-agendized item?
No one has signed up.
Would anyone like to comment on a non-agendized item? Looking around, seeing none, we'll close the comment period on item number 9. Thanks, everybody. This was very productive. Again, Bobby and Sal, great presentation, and I think we have a lot of excitement ahead. With that, we'll adjourn.